Good afternoon, this is Jeff at Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we're at property address 3648 Southeast Paula Jean Court here in Hillsboro. We're located at the front of the house. We're just to the right of the front doorway. I describe everything as if you're standing out in the street facing the front of the house. So just to the right of the door, you've got a 3-inch ABS cleanout. Don't confuse it with the 4-inch PVC cleanout. That's got a water shutoff inside of it. Actually a pretty clever way to hide that. Anyhow, we're going to drop into here, check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Water is running. We're going to zero out at the base of the cleanout, and off we go. Got a little bit of standing water we're going through right now. We'll see how this looks on the way out when the line's fully drained. Thus far, you're going to have just about no standing water left over once we turn the water off. Hopefully that's as significant as any settling gets in here. So far, pretty good looking sewer line. We do have some grease pulled up in the flow line, but keep that stuff kind of gunking my lens up here and there. There's a layer of it in the flow line. I think my camera is honestly going to remove most of it, but we'll see. Making a swap here over to what appears to be, looks like concrete pipe there. 4-inch diameter, but we've made a diameter change at somewhere amongst the run. A little murkier out in this area here. And you've got a lot of buildup out in this part of the line here. In fact, the sidewalls there, I'm a little bit worried. Yeah, we'll see if we're pushing a bunch of debris through the line. The way that brown staining is going up the sidewalls there, that almost has the appearance of dirt. In fact, thought I just saw an earthworm there. That might be an earthworm hanging out in the joint right there. It's a very commonly seen thing on lines that have pipe joints that are exposed to the ground. There's just a different texture. The way that the water looks right there, that's got kind of a gritty, almost sandy looking texture to it. I think you've got some joints there that are open to the ground. And one of the bummers of concrete pipe versus like the settling we had in the ABS plastic at the start of the line, plastic pipe can settle to extraordinary lengths without breaking. Whereas concrete pipe, because of its rigidity and because of how frequent the pipe joints typically are, when it starts to settle, it doesn't flex terribly well, as you can imagine. And generally, unless it's transite concrete, concrete pipe is sealed up with pipe grout, which is also not a very flexible thing either. So, in fact, a lot of the times when you get settling in concrete pipe, it is the result of the joints wearing out. Sorry, I've got so much gunk on my camera lens here. When that pipe grout wears out over time, it is definitely the weak point in concrete as well as clay pipe. Not that we have clay here, but they're very similar. As time goes on, that grout wears out, the joints become exposed to the ground, which then allows groundwater to seep into the line, and it drags dirt with it. The dirt that's either over top the sewer line, usually it's the stuff that's under the sewer line that's supporting it, and it causes hydro erosion and the line to settle progressively. That's kind of how this is looking right now. Anyhow, we're going to take another look at things here. We're at the main here, basically 100 feet on the nose. Long sewer line. We're going to go locate, let the pipe drain off, and we'll see how things look as we come back in. Alright, located the camera head successfully. Line terminates out on Southeast Paula Jean Court. I did put a marking down there out at the main. In fact, the city's already marked it with some green paint, and kudos to whoever did that. That's one of the few city locates I've seen in a while that it was actually right on the money. Right in the middle of the cul-de-sac area is where the line terminates. You'll see my white paint marking out there. Actually quite a shallow main lateral considering the length of this run. It was only about 6 feet deep. For runs this length, ideally you've got a main that's situated, especially on a flatter property like this, you know, in the 8 foot, 9 foot, 10 foot deep realms. You've got a lot more leeway to work with. So right out of the gate there, that last joint there, the connection onto the stub, that joint is separated, and you've got some staining up at the top of the pipe there that does appear that joint is exposed to the ground. As is that one there. You've got dirt coming through it. Not a terribly unexpected thing to see for concrete pipe this age. It looks like a little bit coming through that one. Similar there. And some of the stringy stuff you're seeing there, those are cobwebs, not roots or anything like that. But that one also has dirt going through it. We're likely to see that on pretty much every joint in the concrete pipe here. Similar there. There's your earthworm. Not sure if that's the one I thought I saw earlier or if it's a different, coming from a different pipe joint. Very common thing to see when joints are exposed to the ground. It'll become earthworm city. What's interesting here, I'm wondering if maybe there was some debris in front of my camera when we first ran out. That joint there is starting to shift. Not massively. That's the one we originally saw there, where I thought I saw an earthworm into the joint. That red color might be a worm, might be something else. Sometimes they just sit there and don't move. Usually they're weaseling around somewhere. But surprisingly here, thought I was going to see more standing water. There may have been a ball of toilet paper or something like that up ahead of the camera originally. It was damming the pipe up as we were moving along. I'm very happy to see we don't have a bunch of standing water in here. There is just the ever so slightest amount, although that water there still looks like it's kind of trickling off. It's just about nothing. However, we still have joints there that are showing signs of being exposed to the ground. So as this line sits right now, I mean, this is something you'd want to run past a company just to make sure that the feasibility is there. There's some nuance to doing things like epoxy lining is what I'm getting at. This is going to be probably the entire width of the roadway here where this concrete pipe is. I'm going to do a flush to clear that off the lens, but this is the right time to do a liner on this pipe. When you've got all your joints, like, and it's every single joint in the concrete has got some sign or another that either groundwater and or dirt, and if groundwater can seep through, so can dirt. As it sits right now, the line has little to no settling that's occurred. This is the time to take advantage of some of these trenchless repair systems like an epoxy liner. Just for anyone watching this is a 3-inch ABS cleanout we're dropping into here. It looks like the line remains 4-inch all the way out though. Doesn't look like it bells to 6-inch. So I do believe you've got a cleanout here that I believe will suffice. However, sometimes these longer runs like this do require, a lot of companies nowadays are wanting to put in a clean out right before the repair starts. But I am going to recommend an update on that concrete pipe. I wouldn't recommend digging it up unless there is just absolutely no other option, as the pipe here still appears to have good slope and grade to it. I don't want to see any trenching happening unless there's just no other way of doing things. A liner, if it can be done, is how I'd be doing this. You can do it either completely trenchlessly or almost entirely trenchlessly. a run this long may require a second clean out go in out near the street. That's due to the pipe joints there being exposed to the ground. The concern with those joints in the immediate, they're not doing anything to affect flow. Not the kind of thing right now that's going to be causing blockages. The problem with them is it almost every case will cause progressive settling. How aggressively that occurs is impossible to predict unless you're scoping a line every single year to monitor that. I've done almost 25,000 sewer scopes at this point in my career. Plenty of repair work, lots of drain cleaning, and I have had scenarios like this. Usually it's more so when involve root intrusions and stuff like that, where people, take a credit in, for instance, for a liner, and then opt to cut the roots out and push it off down the road. I've had many of them over the years where people have waited too long. The line progressively settles over the next couple, 2-3 years, and they come back when they want to do a liner on it, and the whole line's got a belly in it. And then you're looking at doing a much more expensive trench style repair at that point. I don't want to see anyone run into that problem. So that's what I'm going to recommend here. From about 55 feet to 100 feet, I do recommend updating the concrete pipe here due to the joints being exposed to the ground. If for some reason a repair is not done, I highly recommend you rescope this line every single year to keep an eye on it, to monitor the line for settling issues. If you start to see any further aggressive settling, you really want to get on top of that. This is the good time to do it right now, though, before any of that's really taken place, so you don't run the risk of losing the ability to do that. In a case like this, you're probably talking 55 feet. I'm going to go locate right now and find out, but you've probably got every inch of this is under concrete. So trenching, even doing something like a pipe burst on it where you're having to punch 2 holes at each end, considerably more expensive than doing something like a liner. And as a quick note, too, while the water gets out there, unless something has changed recently, out here in Hillsboro, generally speaking, the homeowner is responsible all the way up to the main lateral. Unlike certain parts of town, like Multnomah County, for instance. That was one mamma jamma of a cobweb we went through there. There we go. Alrighty. I'm going to go put a marking down right here at the transition joint. Again, you'll see a white T marking out the main lateral connection. With the depth on the ground there, I'll go put another marking down here. And this section runs dead straight from end to end between these 2 ends of the pipe. Alright, for some reason or another, I'm getting some really wonky depths here. My locate is where I expected it to be at the right-of-way. Where I'm situated right now is at the front left corner of the driveway, before the sidewalk. There's that bottom left-hand corner of the driveway is considerably rougher than the rest of the driveway. There's a lot more aggregate rock exposed there. You'll see my white T marking, but my depths are all over the place there for some reason. I think I'm near some utilities that might be interfering with the locator. Just pushing out here, out near the street curb to see if I can get a better depth. No, I'm not even getting any locate signal here. There may be too much interference in general in this area. I am seeing a green, it's a faint paint marking, but right just beyond the water meters, it points back towards the row of arborvitae. I'm going to see if I can get any other depth. Otherwise, that marking on the ground there in the driveway, I would consider rough. It wouldn't surprise me, honestly, if it did shoot under the arborvitae. I'm just not sure if that's where it's at. And with the kind of signal I'm getting right now, it would not completely surprise me if that locate is off by a little bit. So we'll see if I can get anything better here. Otherwise, that marking on the ground there should not be used as a dig marking until someone else relocates to double check. Yeah, and here too, I'm getting my locates are too rough, so I'll do another one here when we get back into the ABS to see if it can point me the right direction. But that marking there at the bottom left-hand corner of the driveway, I would not be using that to go digging out, and I'll put a note in the report about that. I can't even give you a depth there anyway, so. Yeah, my locate here is coming in quite clear with no jumpiness at all to it. And I'm situated just a few feet away from where that spot's at. So the marking I put there does appear to be accurate. I'm seeing some city markings that aren't quite lining up with what I'm seeing here. So I'm still going to recommend relocating, especially with the interference I was getting. Once I get just around that bend there, the interference is pretty bad with my system. And I'm getting as a depth there just a few feet before the transition, basically the exact same depth as the main, about 6'2", 6'3" inches. And you got just enough fall to that thing to give it grade. There's just cobwebs there at the top. Just did another toilet flush here. That little white line going up the sidewall of the pipe has just enough depth to it. Feasibly could be like a crack in the pipe. It's really hard to say though. It could just as easily be some kind of debris that got up on the sidewall. That dang cobweb is still attached to my camera. There we go. Yeah, that's a hard one there. I don't see any obvious, super obvious exposure to the ground there. There's a little bit of a brown substance just on the other side of that little white line. And I'm just not entirely sure that's a crack there. There's a lot of things that can get down lines that kind of mimic that look, especially when it's subtle. Now, I just located it just for the sake of knowing where it's at. Right now, there's just not enough here. Most surefire way to figure that out without doing repairs and just fixing it, which I wouldn't jump straight to, but you could try and clean the line here, run a machine through, whether it's a jetter or flex shaft, something just to scour the pipe wall, and then rescope to see if you can see any obvious crack in that location. This is, it's just a few feet deep here. The right side panel of the driveway, that's as you face the house from the street. There is a small rectangle repair patch there in the driveway. Where we're situated right now is about 2 feet or so away from that repair patch before going underneath it. So I'll at least notate this on the report. It's a hard one. And if you do decide to do something like an epoxy liner, anytime those are done, they are always going to be doing some level of drain cleaning to clean the pipe up and give a good bonding surface. And my foot counter's glitched out here. Sorry, it's not counting backwards now. Anyway, during that process, you could always, while they're cleaning it, clean that spot. If it does appear there's a crack there, they should be able to do a spot repair, just a point repair liner on that spot, should it be necessary. And I'll probably have to go back and review the original advance out to get the exact foot count on where we're at right now.
Rigid.
Yeah, we're approximately about 15 feet out. The line shoots into the yard and then turns, shoots across the driveway. Then once near the left side edge of the driveway, it turns once more and then heads out to the road. But right around the 15-foot mark there, this is that little belly we saw at the very beginning. In fact, most of that water there still is moving. I think that toilet inside there has got a flapper that hasn't closed all the way off yet. Now, this is the spot here.
Rigid.
Now we're more like right around here, right around 7 feet approximately. You've got the world's tiniest belly. It's a rinky-dink little thing. About the only time you would ever see, and for reference, I don't even consider repairs on bellies, especially in plastic pipe, until there's at least a 5-foot section of sewer pipe with a minimum of 1 inch of standing water in it. What you've got here is about 1/16 of an inch. There's a little bit of debris at the top of the pipe there. About the only time you would ever see a blockage occur in a belly that tiny is under abusive situations. You'd have to be beating this thing up hard. Putting wipes, paper towels, I mean, wadded them up, stuff like that is about the only scenario you'd ever get that to occur. It looks like a blockage may have happened there at some point in the past. It's very sporadic debris buildup at the top there, though, and sometimes you can even get mildew, fungal growth, stuff like that anytime you've got standing water, but whatever did occur here blocked for a second and then busted loose. You can see the pipe's clean right in this area here. That means that thing lasted for about 2 seconds and then broke loose. So the line here may bump out to 4 inch right as we drop in. Because by the time we get to the concrete pipe, it's a flush transition. And generally speaking, that stuff is always a minimum of 4 inch diameter. I'm just not seeing an obvious spot where it bells out, but if the transition is literally the joint right as you drop in, it'll be very, very hard to see it. Anyway, what I can tell there, it looks like 4 inch pipe. The thing hasn't belled out enough for it to be 6 inch out there at the concrete.
Rigid.
Yeah, so we're from about 3 to 7 feet. You've got about 1/16 of an inch of standing water. It's way too minor to need repairs, in my opinion. The only thing you'll see consistently hanging up in a spot like that, and I just went backwards through the foundation wall, everything from that point on is exposed piping. The home inspector looks at that stuff. Grease and cooking oil will build up anywhere in a sewer line, but it especially likes to do so when it hits any amount of standing water, whether it's 1/16 of an inch or 3 inches. Cooking oil and grease, it cools down rapidly when it hits water, especially standing water that's colder than the sink water it's usually running with. It also floats on top of water, so it'll collect on the sidewalls there. So anyway, otherwise a spot like that would handle even abusive items. Not that you should be putting those down the line, but as long as you're not flushing an entire roll of paper towels down the pipe, was just your run-of-the-mill 1 or 2, which is likely what caused that little bit of debris you saw there, and or a bunch of huge wads of toilet paper that likely are blocking, busting loose the whole way out to that point. Stuff is going to break loose very easily from there. 99% of things will not even stop there. They'll just keep on moving. So, very, very tiny little thing. Anyway, as a recap here, we just talked about the little belly. No fix on that. Recommend a full update to all concrete pipe from approximately 55 to 100 feet. Again, I'd highly recommend looking into the epoxy liner for that style of repair for what you've got here. And then a possible crack there at about 34 feet. That one is going to require, I think cleaning would make sense if you're trying to verify it. Run a machine through, scour the pipe wall, rescope it, and see if there's anything left over. Sometimes gunk and whatnot can get stuck into little tiny cracks in the pipe and fill them in and make it very hard to see. And in a lot of cases, debris just gets stuck to the pipe wall, and it kind of mimics the look of a crack. Otherwise, the rest of the line here we saw looking good. The ABS pipe's in good shape everywhere else and has good flow.